So hi, welcome to Noise Podcast. I'm Shane,
I'm Glory.
and we're here with.
Ricky. And I am Patrick, and we are a little group called Lowest.
And we're asking some questions today about the upcoming EP, Distance and
So,
Motion. So congrats on that, by the way. How are you guys personally feeling about it since at the time of recording, the EP is not announced yet?
great. Yeah, it's kind of exciting to finally have the full project um, out and available. It's been a work in progress for a pretty long time, seeing as Ricky and I are both busy with other stuff that we do together, like I Sign Kills, and other things that we do separate, like the rest of our lives,
Mhm.
and kind of finalizing the final release bits of this EP. I'm glad we were finally able to get it together. Which Ricky, the EP is going to come out on the 5th of January.
5th of January. Okay. Noted.
Great.
Did you pull that date
I'll
out of
put
your
that in
ass
my
this morning
calendar.
when Glory hit you up, Pat?
Yes, I did.
He was looking
Yes,
at his
that's
calendar.
what
He's
I
like,
did.
yeah, the 5th of January, that looks good.
Yes, that's what I did.
Oh my God.
Yeah, War Memorial is going to come out on the 1st of December, and the EP is going to come out on January 5th.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Before we
I,
move
I found that out today too.
right now,
It's a big day.
But before we move too far into this, Glory was kind of explaining this project a little bit to me, but I'm still a little bit confused because Pat, you're like, it's kind of like your project, the way it's presented on socials and the way that like the bio on Instagram is. But then, Ricky's also in some of the press photos. He's got a feature on this new EP. So can you like explain to me the dynamic between you two for this
Well,
project?
I think I think I can take that one. So it is Pat's. It is Pat's project. Pat's the vocalist. He's the vision behind it. But these certain projects, I think, like Billie Eilish is an example we frequently cite, where you have an artist and you have a particular producer who just happens to be the producer for that gig. So, Adam's always taking Pat's photos, and Pat's always just like, "Yeah, we should get Ricky in some of these." You know what I mean? Like we do the Billy Phineas thing. So, I'm very much a part of it in terms of like I'm the ears and I'm the guy kind of like driving the songwriting and trying to interpret. Like Pat comes in with like very very thought out ideas, and he's always got like kind of a whole thing behind it. But there's a certain amount of my writing process is a little schizophrenic where I just take a song, I make a song, I redo it. And I take that redone song and I redo it. And I take that redone song and I redo it. And this just happens until in the end you have song that you're like, cool. And you're excited about. So, Pat kind of understands my process and we have the benefit of being around each other all the fucking time. And and I'm able to crack open one of these things and fuck around with it and be like, don't kill me, but I put a new chorus on that song and I'll show it to him and we'll talk about it. And sometimes it might be something he's stoked about, and sometimes not. But my goal isn't to make it my own thing. My goal is to just kind of take Pat's ideas and be like, do you know what I think it would even be more Patrick Galani? Sorry, Patrick. He I know he prefers Patrick, and I literally I've always gone by like five different names. I can go by Rick, Ricky, Richard, Dick,
Yeah.
Raj.
No one's ever
No,
called you Dick.
Dude, I've called him Dick before. It's okay.
Was it in a derogatory sense, Glory?
I
Yeah.
can't remember.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I would have responded the same. Whether or not it's derogatory doesn't change the fact that it's a word, and I respond to it.
That's fine.
But no. So the goal is to always just try to take there's like a certain sound that we're kind of going for, and we both kind of have this way of kind of chatting about it and trying to achieve it using our wiles.
Yeah.
We've set up microphones in Airbnbs and in hotel rooms, and we've kind of kicked ideas around and stuff like that. And And I'm really proud of this EP because we finally just locked ourselves in my basement for a while, and we kind of pushed ourselves to actually make a couple things that were kind of like wish list items. Like we wanted the Nine Inch Nails really aggressive jam. We wanted the kind of Defeater sounding hardcore jam. We wanted the kind of like Halsey mixed with Bad Omens / Deftones type jam. And, we've been talking about these things for like a year and a half. And then we got a chance to see what actually happened when we, you know, got a couple days off of fucking playing in Spencer's band.
Yeah. Yeah. The Billie Eilish to Phineas reference is something that I say pretty often where, if Billie Eilish didn't have Phineas, then Billie Eilish's sound would not be what it is. And even though she is the face and the forefront of that project, she they did the same thing that we were doing, where they set up just like microphones and instruments in bedrooms and basements, and like we recorded Headstone in an Airbnb in Massachusetts when we were rehearsing for our first tour back in 2021. We did.
Yeah.
We
Which,
did
by the
some
way,
of,
we rehearsed for a month.
God damn.
What?
Yeah, we rehearsed for a month.
Yeah. Yeah, after COVID, after coming back from COVID, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think we needed to.
yeah. Yeah, in Joe's basement, Joe's parents' basement. Yeah. Yeah, we've kind of just like taken any opportunity and any time that we had to try to get this project, to try to give it some legs and try to get it to where we wanted to be, but also knowing that it wasn't either of our main focuses, and kind of having to juggle it with other things. Like Ricky said, I eventually we found the time in February to really sit down for about 2 weeks and actually do the 4 songs that we had Headstone, we had Husk, and we needed to sit down and do at least 4 more songs to do an EP. And we actually got it taken care of in the couple weeks that we had together. And Ricky and I that's how we work. We work very well together. And
You're leaving out the best part of the whole entire thing, because then we drove all the way to LA afterwards, because that was the deal.
And then finished.
I'll make these songs and you help me drive to LA. And then the first thing that happened in that studio ever that is going to get released was us making that intro track. And we were literally trying out the vocal booth. It was like, what? Throw Pat in there. We'll have Pat do some vocals. We'll hear how that vocal booth sounds. It'll be great. And that actually ended up, and then I put that intro track together. But the funny thing is that intro track was the first thing that we had worked on years prior on a live stream. We had thrown together, because you remember we had thrown together that intro track, and it wasn't very good.
No.
But what I had done, I had a new plugin that I really like that just takes audio and turns it into things that sound like synths. So I just popped that on all the files that we had used, and then I made a new track out of that and just had Pat scream bloody murder over it. And I was like, I'll figure it out. But yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, this EP was actually technically recorded in like 3 to 4 different places, and between studios, between Airbnbs, between hotels. A lot of this stuff was recorded, actually like final takes, recorded in multiple different places with multiple different microphones and multiple different like setups, which is just like another thing that kind of just shows how resilient I think we are, and how well we can work together, but also that you can get the same quality sound out of like situations that you didn't think were going to be ideal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Damn,
Have we talked this entire time so far?
How long you guys been doing this?
Long fucking time.
4 years, Ricky.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I was actually going to flip the question on you. So what is the timeline of Lowest? Like, when was the birth of Lowest to the final single like completely done?
Not to
We
not to
made
ask the
that.
age old
We
question,
we
when did the
made
band
that.
form?
Yeah.
We made that
Well,
cover. What was
yeah, it
that?
was
20.
the
Ooh,
Halsey cover was the we recorded the Halsey cover in December of 2020, I believe.
mhm.
So I had done the original like uh arrangement of what I wanted to be a Halsey cover of
Mhm.
Gasoline. I did that in the spring of
Yeah.
2020
Mhm.
over
Okay.
COVID times.
COVID, yeah.
And or so yeah, so it would have been 2021. Because we had come back from COVID, we had
Mhm.
toured, we had done the Hip to Be Scared leg one, and then after Hip to Be Scared, I
Was
went to
this
Lancaster.
was this when we did that what became Knight Rider collar?
Uh
Was this the same set of sessions? Because I remember we worked on I remember we'd worked on
yeah, it
that and
might have
something
been.
else. Yeah, I think it was the Halsey song.
I think it was
Yeah,
the same session. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah,
yeah,
so the same session in
yeah,
2021. Yeah.
man.
That's crazy.
Uh,
Hmm.
Yeah, it is. It's fun. It's fun to think about this because some of these things go on for so long, and it's so funny because I'm actually experiencing this on my own project. I've been just like going like full hawk mode for the past couple weeks,
Mhm.
and it's so funny that there is like there are points where I'm like replacing notes, and I'm like trying to match a tone on like a guitar or a bass just so I can like add in a chunk. And it kind of reminds me of this thing that I watched Peter Jackson talk about one time about Lord of the Rings, where like the scene, one of the final scenes involving the mountain with Frodo and Sam when they're exchanging dialogue, and it's like super emotional, and it's like a very heavy moment in the trilogy.
Mhm.
Both of their shots were like years. They were taken years apart from one another, and they had to like patch it
Really?
together to make yeah.
Damn.
And I always think about that where it's like sometimes these songs you end up working like on them, and they can be something that just goes on for like like a long time,
I
and
mean,
there's history to them, and there's a
yeah.
whole backstory to them and everything.
Mhm.
I mean, my original arrangement of the Halsey song was I was doing that around the same time that the Affiance guys were sending tracks back and forth. And when I started demoing out what would now become some Knight Rider songs, I just had like all these ideas and all these files. And it must have been after we got back together for the Ice Nine tour in 2021 that winter. Um, I was in Lancaster, and I knew that we wanted to work on this Halsey cover that eventually had Ricky singing on it, and also
Mhm.
had Jack, who was playing guitar, and Hawk
Mhm.
play like the main riff, and had Adam like kind of do the drums for it. So it was like this Lois and Hawk like collab.
Yeah.
But in that same session, we worked on the what now is Collar.
Mhm.
The first track that Knight Rider released is something that Ricky and I originally produced together. Um, so to answer your question, Lowest, I guess, formed
Mhm.
at the end of 2021. Well, and then I believe that we released the Halsey cover in, I have it actually pulled up right here in, let's see here, pause.
Okay.
In, no, I was telling my computer to pause.
Oh, I was
Uh,
like, okay.
oh no,
Damn.
dude, no, we're wrong.
No way. You've been just fucking spewing bullshit.
Yeah, dude, absolutely been spewing bullshit.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Love it.
We
Ricky's just
we
grabbing mail right now.
released we released Gasoline in August of 2021. So we must have done a session. We must have done a session that was like a COVID session where I came over. Yeah, that's exactly what we did, dude. We recorded the Gasoline cover either in the winter of 2020 or 2021, and
Mhm.
then the I believe the collar session uh was maybe we finished Husk and then did the collar session. Now I'm all screwed up. I don't know.
Yeah. No, no, no. Husk was a one-off.
Yeah. Oh man.
Husk was at the end of a tour. It's so fun. So I'm not like a
Yeah,
normal
you're right.
studio. I'm not a normal studio. I'm not like I do sessions where people book a couple days and they come out. But normally, what's happening is I have a bunch of artists and I have like folders upon folders of songs on my computer, and like all of them are just waiting to get done. And I watch every single one of them get older and older every fucking month.
Hmm.
There goes the school bus.
High school bus?
Yeah, because I started the lowest Instagram in July of 2021.
And then that
So
was when we released, yeah, that was when we released Gasoline.
yeah, so we must have recorded Gasoline either early 2021 or late 2020, and that's when this actually came about. Yeah.
All right.
Nah,
Yeah.
That
Long
that
ass
Dave.
time that time in our lives is such a blur, honestly, from doing like a year to 2 years of seclusion with COVID,
Yeah.
and then us coming back with Ice Nine and doing like
Non-stop touring.
10
Big
of
ton of
14,
tours.
like yeah, I mean we did, I mean, August 2021 to last December, we were on tour for like 10 of those. We played like 145 shows or something like that, and
Oh,
had done like 6 tours or something since coming back from COVID. And that was before what we just did this year. Like we came back with such a push that it all fades together, honestly.
Fair enough.
wow.
Well,
I would argue it's probably not the healthiest way to live, but whatever.
probably
No.
not. So the project started in 2021. It's 2023 now. By the time the EP comes out, it'll be the top of 2024.
True.
Yeah,
God damn.
Awesome.
yeah, yeah. It
And
sounds
and
sounds
that
about
means
right.
that and within all of that,
Mhm.
Ricky and I recorded this EP within uh probably 4 different sessions over that span of time, really. I mean, like within,
Yeah,
it took about a year and a half of us doing about four sessions, whether it was 3 days to 2 weeks of putting together these tracks.
Mhm.
yeah,
Because it was just whenever we had the time to do it. Headstone was a one-off, Husk was a one-off. Uh, the intro track started on its own, Candlelight started on its own, and then we kind of had to, piece the puzzle together when we
yeah.
had
Then
the
we
time to
added
do it.
3 more tracks.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Hmm.
very.
It's a tangled web we weave. We'll be
Absolutely.
right back.
Do you guys have a commercial to put here?
I mean, sure.
we
No.
should probably go find one. Ad read
Totally.
Can't
right
get
here.
I can't get over Tom Segura just ranting about poor people on Twitter. I can't get over. I can't stop thinking about it.
Ricky, it's a podcast, but we're supposed to say somewhat on topic.
This
Oh, that's
podcast
right.
is brought
Sorry.
to you by Tom Segura ranting on Twitter.
Fucking
Yeah.
okay. I did want to ask, because all the recording sessions were spread over a couple years, how were you able to kind of keep the vision of what you wanted to do with this project consistent? Because the EP covers a couple different sounds, but it's still very consistent. It still works together. It still flows very well, by the way. EP rocks. I forgot to say that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's just how did you manage to do that?
I think two
Uh,
things. Number one, my production. Yeah, like if I produce it, it's gonna sound like something I produce. But
Yeah.
also, I think Pat and I have kept a pretty consistent vision the whole time. I don't think that's really changed. We're not. I think we're kind of established enough in our career as artists where we've both tried a lot of things,
Mhm.
and at this point we know what we're good at on a social level. Like I've kind of like experienced that where I think in my younger stages as an artist, I'm sure Pat, I don't know, Pat, were you like this where I was like throughout all my 20s I was always like, nah, man, I'm gonna try something like this, and you always think it's gonna go good, and You're like, no, man, if I did a pop punk CD, oh, that would go so well. And then it
Oof.
doesn't. You're like, oh man, I could rap and you're like, or whatever, whatever it's gonna be. But you always think that you just have all these options at your disposal. I
Mhm.
think as you grow up as an artist, and I mean that as like as an artist, not as just a hobbyist, not as somebody who's just doing this in their free time, but somebody that this is like their life, with which I think Pat and I fall under that category. You eventually just you have tendencies, you have things that you do, you have things that sound correct, that you have things that your brain agrees with, and those are a result of not only things that you strive for, but also just the reactions of people,
Mm.
on your stuff. Like music's a social thing. So I think we're kind of at the point now where I think if we got to work on another Five Lowest songs, I'm sure they would be different
Mhm.
than what we did, but I'm sure they would be a logical progression of what we did,
Yeah.
mixed in with kind of like I've been into like breakbeat type stuff lately. Like, oh, I've been into Dark House and playing around since.
I got you.
By the
Yeah.
way, Pat, I just bought a Moog Sub 37, and I know that doesn't mean anything to you, but it is a really cool keyboard that we're gonna fuck around with on the next one.
I'm excited for that.
Oh yeah.
I want to add that even if you put these songs in order of when we wrote them,
Mhm.
you wouldn't necessarily see a progression of talent or a progression of songwriting or a progression of growth in the writing process. I think that especially with me being in my 30s and my voice not really going to be changing all that much. My singing voice is pretty consistent. My screams depends on how like worn in I am and how practiced I am and how how much I've been doing it at the time of recording. You can tell that my screams are stronger in our new stuff than they were in Headstone, but that's
Mhm.
again because Headstone we were coming right off of me not doing vocals for like a year and a half during COVID.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the screaming parts in Headstone are a little weaker than the screaming parts in the others tracks because we were just getting off tour. Like I had been screaming all tour, and then we get into a recording booth and I'm at like 100%. But
Mhm.
that doesn't take away from Headstone at all for me because I feel like it still fits those parts so well. And as far as the vision for this EP, after we recorded Headstone and Husk, I had a list of these are the things that I want to do for an EP. I want to do a song. I did not know it was going to be Candlelight. I did not have any of the lyrics for Candlelight, but I
Mhm.
knew that track 3, I wanted it to be a song about a haunted house, and I wanted Ricky to sing on it. I knew that track 6 was going to be a song that I was going to pull inspiration from an old poem that I wrote about Buffalo, New York, and I knew that I wanted Anthony Musier from Buffalo to do guest vocals on it. I
Yeah.
knew that I wanted an intro track that was going to sound like this. And
Mhm.
so I already had all of this planned out. So the vision was always there. It was just filling in the pieces of how I wanted it to go. So we really did just take my original idea over the years and just
Mhm.
like really just bring it to life. I knew that I wanted to use the theme of distance and motion in every single song. I say those words in every single song. I knew that that's what I wanted the theme to be,
Mhm.
and just growing off of that, we were able to piece together the final few songs to make it work.
So you had a lot of this figured out before you even really put pen to paper in terms of what the title was going to be, what the track list was going to be, even, which is crazy to me.
Yeah,
And so like your vision was set, and then it was just like I'm writing within these confines. Is that typically like
yeah, I
how you like to go with things?
yeah, I think that I'm definitely a almost like a storyboard writer, especially when it comes to music, where I will give myself the macro before I go into the micro, and I really give myself like a storyboard or a web of what I want to do and how I want everything to go in, and then
Mhm.
write the song based on the song title. I do that all the time where I come up with a song title, but I came up with the song title Husk. I came up with
Mhm.
the album art for Husk before I even wrote the song. Um,
Yeah.
I took the picture of the cicada exoskeleton and I edited it and I turned it into an album cover and I
Mhm.
called it Husk, and then I said, well, now I got to write a song called Husk. And
Yeah.
then literally went through old writing, and a lot of the songs, a lot of Headstone is from poems that I had written 10 plus years ago that I
Mhm.
went and I just go back to and I find old, old writing and I revamp it.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of it is, it's not really putting the cart before the horse, I wouldn't say, whatever that
Mhm.
saying is,
Mhm.
but a lot of it is I would like to fully fledge out the vision and the final product before I even get into like what the song is going to sound like.
I
For
gotcha.
sure.
And,
Huh.
and do you find yourself like you put yourself like almost in this box where like in for Husk you've got the song title, you've got where it is on the EP, you've got the album art, you know that it's a single. Do you find yourself like, oh fuck, like nothing is coming to me, or does it still just flow out of you even though you've got all these confines and like this box you're in?
Uh, I think that I think that that's where I achieve things, is being actually put into a box that, especially if I create it myself, I feel like constraints and confines that I've given myself is an easy way to work towards a goal.
Mhm.
Not necessarily that I'm confining myself or constricting myself or restricting myself.
Mhm.
It really is more of a, hey, this is what you need to do to achieve this creative idea that you have. How are
Mhm.
you going to get to that? And
Mhm.
you know that there's like the final product's going to be awesome. So how are you going to get there? Because you already kind of have a vision of what the final product's going to be. So let's do everything the right way to get there instead of cutting corners or like,
Mhm.
this, like, this is good enough kind of thing. But I already know what the final product wants to be. So instead of doing something good enough and having the final product be here, I already know that it's supposed to be here. So
Yeah.
nothing is going to be good enough until I get to that final product.
Okay.
Damn. So when you're doing that, how do you know when you finally reached that mark? Were there any songs that kind of took you like an extra long time that you just couldn't crack?
There's kind of a perfectionism that goes on around these parts, but it's not exactly it's not like a competitive thing in terms of other people's stuff. It's just a matter of achieving certain goals. So I think when Pat he would bring me these concepts, and they were exactly like what he just told you. He's like, I don't want this song to be called Husk,
Mhm.
and which I thought was funny because I just kept thinking about a corn husk the whole entire time.
Yeah.
I don't, I don't know it had anything to do with cicadas.
Yeah.
Um, but so I'm a songwriter and I study my job religiously. So it's like a song comes down to five features. There's a melody, counter melody, there's harmonic content, rhythm, texture. And so for me, it was like what I would just be doing is we'd be working with Pat, be like, okay. So how does it go? Like, what's the idea? You'd be like, we'd have to try to figure out lines, and he kind of like starts telling me
There
some
we
of
go.
his lyrics. I'd be like, nodding my head and like listening, and I'd be like suggesting lyrics back and forth, and we kind of would be playing around with it. But
Mhm.
it was like we'd be kind of like I think Husk. I remember I just sat in the green room annoying the shit out of Joe and just like playing with like synths and stuff on my computer, and I made just this thing that just sounded like a distorted bass looping, and I
Mhm.
was like, and me and Pat were just like kind of like you know talking ideas over top of it while I was playing my MacBook speakers and stuff like that. And I
Mhm.
remember I saved that for months, and he was at my house. I was like, hey Pat, remember this? And, hit play, and
Yeah.
then it's like that's your starting idea. So you listen to that for a little bit and then you talk about it and you're like, what would be a better version of that? Because
Mhm.
there's always like a cooler, every idea has a cooler version if you
Mhm.
just think about it enough, where you're like, actually, I think that this is a cooler version. So,
Mhm.
we kind of would exhaust our options where we'd like, do something and be like, is there a cooler version of that? And I think Candlelight was the one where we took that to the furthest extent because it was like, we just like we wrote a chorus and that's a verse, and then we wrote a new verse, and then
Mhm.
this verse is better than the chorus, and now we need a new chorus, and we write a chorus, but now this chorus is cool, but it doesn't sound like it's right with this verse. So then we change the verse, and then all of a sudden the chorus doesn't feel good. So then we change the chorus again, and then we're like going back and forth. And then we finally, it was when he was at my house for a while. I remember we finally just got a final version, and I remember being like, okay, we're agreeing that this is just going to be the one, even if we think of something better, right? It's like, oh hell yeah, it's like cool.
Yeah.
Like next, if we think of something better, it's a new song, and we change enough of the lyrics that nobody realizes it. That fair? Cool. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but then,
there's
but then
there's
there's
definitely a look that I think that we get that we give each other. Sorry if I missed out on a lot of that beginning. The sound had cut out, but there's definitely a look that Ricky and I think share together when we're in the studio and working on something that we know like, oh, this is we got there. This is the
yeah,
this is the one, like
Mhm.
after you spend 6 hours working on a song and then you take a break and then you go in the car and then you're going to Sheets to get a case of beer and a sub and you're listening to it in the car and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
this is the right one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I will say one I thought the coolest memories was when it was like when we finally got to the one where it's like, all right, we've been talking about for a while. We want to try to do something, in the vein of a band we both adore called Defeater.
Mhm.
And we actually sat on the internet reading about the gear that they use for a little while because I'm like, I don't even know how you get that guitar sound. And it was like, oh, a
Mhm.
Telecaster through a Soldano. All right. And then we're calling up Bernie, the Hawks bassist, and we're like,
Mhm.
doesn't your dad have a really nice Telecaster? Can I borrow that for a day? And then we're like downloading tones and stuff like that. And we actually like, went through our mentality was like, well, let's actually, let's write using those sounds. And then that turned out to be that was a really fun day. That
Mhm.
day that we were working on it because we just basically got to make a hardcore song that was really kind of unlike most of the stuff him and I had worked on. But once we had, put it through the process and really like fine tuned everything, it was definitely like, okay, yeah, this sounds like the real deal. Like this
Yeah.
this is like what it's supposed to sound like.
Yeah, and I would say
I
that even though War Memorial is the one that kind of sounds the most left field, if you will, of the
Mhm.
lowest songs, again, because it's Ricky producing it and it's because it's my writing and it's because it's my voice on it, it still has that lowest badge on it. It still feels like a lowest song, even though it's in the vein of a hardcore, post-hardcore song that is different than anything else on the EP.
Mhm.
It still works.
Hey
Absolutely.
guys, I'm gonna have to bounce. I'm sorry to leave early. Pat, can you cover the rest of this?
I think I got it, man.
All
Okay.
right.
Gloria, it was good seeing you.
Nice
It was
seeing
nice
you.
to meet you.
Nice to meet you
Yeah.
too.
Okay. Bye,
Bye,
Ricky.
All right,
Richard.
take care, guys.
So Ricky actually didn't answer it. And you were so excited to fucking answer my follow-up question, then your mic completely cut out. But basically, just to kind of summarize it, was there a song that just took a crazy long amount of time to finish up?
Uh,
Is it safe to assume it was Candlelight?
yeah, I would say that it was definitely Candlelight. We worked on that one. I think the most sessions it
Mhm.
took to get Candlelight to where it needed to be. And Ricky and Adam filmed a pretty cool Instagram and TikTok video, kind of explaining the process between the different versions of the verse and the different versions of the chorus that came about.
Mhm.
But we started Candlelight when we were in LA filming uh, the shower scene music video
Oh.
back last year, and that was when Ricky had uh, access to the studio that he has now in LA,
Mhm.
but it was not the studio that we finished the EP in, but a different version of the studio. It was downstairs. It was like not a fully fledged out vocal booth. It was kind of just like a space that we had,
Yeah.
and we started working on Candlelight then, and then we left for I believe that we were on the Trinity of Terror tour, one
Part
of them.
20. Yeah.
And yeah, and there was a session that me and him did in just a hotel room, just revisiting. It had been months since we started Candlelight. We were revisiting it and literally came up with a whole nother verse, a whole different chorus in a hotel room. And then the third session was when we were working on, finishing the EP and doing War Memorial and the intro and Fight or Flight. And Candlelight was another whole, I think, days worth that we Instagram lived a lot of it. But it definitely it had the most versions of itself, and definitely I think took the longest to get to us having that mutual feeling of like, I think we finally got there. Like, I think this is the one we can be confident in moving forward with this version. That song, I really like that song, and I like that it confuses people that it features Ricky on it, because I wanted Ricky to have a vocal feature on it, but people are just like, but isn't Ricky in the band, or like, isn't this? And I'm just like, it's like that meme of the Spider-Men pointing at each other, and it's just like, yeah, like he's in it, but this is the only song that he does vocals on, so I wanted to actually feature him as an artist on it,
Yeah, exactly. It also confused me a little bit when you sent the message and were like, yeah, Ricky's featured on it. I was like, but a fucking hidden feature.
Well, of course he is.
Of course he is. I heard him, but I was like, damn it, he's a fucking hidden feature is the thing. He doesn't have his silly little name next to it. So I was like, what the fuck? But I mean, obviously you can fucking hear him, but yeah. So it's always cool.
Oh yeah.
Silly little name.
So where is your headspace at while you're writing the CP?
My headspace was, all over the place again, because it took such a long time to put together all of the actual lyrical content for it. I knew theme wise where I wanted a lot of it to be, but the theme of distance and motion had come from a poem that I wrote a very, very long time ago, probably 13, 14 years ago, when I moved to Ohio to join Affiance and started touring. And that's when I started writing more poetic stuff and using the theme of distance, because I was always on the road, and motion because I was always a lot of the times, especially when I moved back to Buffalo, I was still in Affiance and I was traveling back and forth to Cleveland, sometimes weekly, for like a couple of years. I was going to Cleveland once a week to do Affiance stuff. And it was just this constant motion. And even though I was home in what I called my home, I still was feeling distant from a lot of things. And it's just a theme that I think has carried on through my entire career, obviously, with touring being my career choice. That theme of distance and motion kind of stuck with me. After I had used the lyrics, I am distance, I am motion, in Headstone, and we were writing Husk, I was like, I found an opportunity to reuse the words again. And I was like, man, I wonder if I should say these words in every song. And I found a way to put the idea of distance and motion in every song, whether it was actually pertaining to like literal distance and literal motion, or more figurative things. So with Headstone was a lot about touring, and a lot about being away, and a lot about how I was finding that my lifestyle when I was home was way worse for me than my lifestyle on the road. A lot of people party really hard on the road, and touring is what tears them apart. And I was finding that my way of coping with not being on tour was destroying myself while I was home. That's where Headstone came from. Husk came out of a situationship that I was in at the time that really fucked me up mentally. And, Husk came out of that. Candlelight came out of, I really kind of connecting with that situationship itself, but feeling like a ghost, but instead of the ghost being the thing that haunts living people, it's a ghost that just wants to stay a ghost and is being bothered and haunted by living people, which is a kind of a cool concept that I really like. Took a while for me to explain to Ricky that it's like, this isn't about me. It's not about a character haunting a house. It's about a ghost that just wants to be in this house, and but the reminder, and he's being haunted by the person that's still in the house.
Yeah.
Fight or flight was a concept that I had come up with when I was working in a wood shop for 5 years, in between while Affiance was touring and in between joining Ice Nine Kills, and just working long hours and not getting the rate that I was deserved, and putting so much work into something and not being recognized for your hard work. The intro track itself takes themes from the whole EP and puts it all into the intro track. I say in the intro, there's a robotic voice that says all of the lines that include distance and motion over and over again. It says everything in the first track. And War Memorial is kind of connecting with Headstone, just about life at home, and what I was doing to fill my time at home, which was just a lot of drinking and a lot of spending time out and not having a place to really call home, and just calling every bar that I could go to home. And kind of just the end of the EP ends in a really like dark and like kind of hopeless way, because that's sometimes how Buffalo, New York can feel, is just dark and cold and hopeless. And the EP itself is kind of on the emotional, dark, sad, kind of tormented side. But I've never been one to really write about like happy things anyway. So
yeah,
fair enough. All right,
understood.
Yeah.
So how do you recommend your fans to listen to this EP for the first time? Should they play in the car with friends, dark with headphones on? Should they work out to it? What do you personally recommend?
I personally recommend, the first time that I listened to it in full, no skip, just was on a walk, nighttime, walking around my neighborhood. I would definitely, I tried to listen to it at first with other people to show them something that I was proud of and be like, hey guys, like, tell me what you think of this.
Yeah.
But it's much different than showing people like an Ice Nine song. It's so much harder to sit there and watch people not understand what your Korean is. So I guess I personally would want people to listen to it on their own and really take it in lyrically, and knowing that there's a concept behind basically the whole thing. I really would like people to kind of sit with it and feel something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do just want to thank you really quickly for how you put it together in the Dropbox for us, because we get Dropbox links every so often. And I rant to Shane every single time that I have to go out, click a song, and just kind of like go track by track with it. But because you fucking rendered it all together, I got the entire flow. I got the idea of it. It was fucking beautiful.
Shout out to you, because she yells at me like I'm the one that puts Dropboxes together.
That's Adam, actually. That's Adam put that together in a way that I could obviously upload each individual track when I wanted to release the songs, but I think he knew how important it was to me that it flowed the correct way, because I was so in depth with that, where I told him, like, in between the intro track and Candlelight, can you take literally 1 second out? Like it's the Candlelight's not coming in soon enough. So being able to hear all of that together is super important to me. And, even the placement of the placement of Husk and Fight or Flight, because they
Mhm.
both start kind of in the same um vibe. They both vibe the same at the beginning. I didn't want them next to each other, but
Mhm.
I also didn't want Husk and War Memorial to be next to each other because they end kind of the same way.
Mhm.
So having the ability to just listen through, because it's only 25 minutes long,
Yeah.
having the ability to listen to all of it, to really make sure that um each one of my points was checked off. Props to Adam, who puts up with my like neurotic bullshit while doing this. But I guess maybe compared to other people, it's not as bad, but maybe I just am just so like self-critical about it that I think that I'm an annoying little guy who's like, Adam, can you take a second out of this transition? But it's like, but that's what I want. It's my project. I get to do
Exactly.
that.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, it's your shit. Mhm.
I think about that, like tracks next to each other and similarities between stuff while playing live with Ice Nine too, because there are songs do where I don't realize that I was kind of doing the same thing or like the same fill until
Mhm.
you play those songs back to back. Like when we would play Dabbing in the Dark and Thank God It's Friday back to back, the choruses of those songs are actually very similar on the drums. And there's actually a
Yeah.
couple transitionary fill parts that are basically the same in both songs. And I
Mm.
hated that I was like playing those songs back to back because I just felt like I was reusing the drum part, and I wanted to
Yeah.
be able to break it up to be like, look over here. I'm not doing the same thing as I
You're
was
like, I
just
don't
doing
I
in the
don't
other
just play the
song.
same thing on the drums.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
I,
Exactly.
I do that. I do that a lot now within, whether it's songwriting, whether it's arranging songs, or what I do live. Like it all there's this just certain like weird neurotic thing that I have where it's all starting to blend together in my. You can definitely tell that that I'm the one putting stuff together, that I'm the one writing the drums, or that I'm the one playing the drums, because I don't know if it's certainly like a Patrick Galante thing, like when like you can hear like when Luke Holland is playing the drums, you know
Mhm.
it's Luke Holland playing the drums because of certain little things. I don't know
Yeah.
if I have that, like I don't know if I have a little like tag of my own as
Mhm.
far as drumming goes, but I
Mhm.
know in my head that like I don't want all three choruses to be the same. I'll tell you that. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's like conceptual. Like, I have more of a conceptual, like writing drums or composing drums so that it fits the song,
Mhm.
rather than for people to know that it's me playing drums. I think that, as far as taking what Ice Nine did on their records and translating into the live performance, or
Mhm.
taking my own songs, there's certain things that you can tell that I am doing it not
Mhm.
from fills, not from certain fills or the way that I play the drums, but the way that stuff is composed and the way that stuff kind of flows
Yeah.
in of itself.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that all made sense
It
in
It did.
did.
theory.
It
It
did.
did.
It did. It did.
Yeah. So this question should be super, super quick. Off the top of your head, I want you to describe this EP for new listeners in 3 words, no more, no less.
Emotional,
Mhm.
intense, and I would say poetic.
Perfect.
Poetic.
Love it.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. So, are you able to touch on any particularly challenging or standout moments from the creation of this EP, positive or negative?
Um, I think the negative thing for me was how long it took to
Mhm.
put together.
Yeah.
And that was just because of time.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, what was the question?
It was just standout moments from the creation of this EP,
Standout moments. Yeah,
positive,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
positive or negative.
Yeah.
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 It's okay. It's okay.
Standout moment. I think maybe it's the negative and the positive of
Okay.
the time that it took for this thing to become what it
Mhm.
is I think the negative part. But I think that the story behind how it came to be what it
Mhm.
is the standout thing. I think that being able to say that like Ricky and I, you know, wrote Headstone in an Airbnb with this like DIY makeshift vocal booth and had
Mhm.
Chris Kelly wrote the riff for it. And,
Shit.
Chris was just like watching Transformers in the living room while I stood next to the TV and
The first
screamed.
one?
Like that's, uh, I think it was probably the first one. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Continue.
We
Sorry.
were
It was a
probably
very
having
important
some sort
question.
of marathon where I'm sure that we
Yeah.
had some sort of marathon where we watched all three
Yeah.
of the originals at least.
The good ones, yeah.
Yeah, I think the how um
I fucked
it
you
was
up.
kind of no, I think just how unusual the timing of it all
Mhm.
is stand out.
Mhm.
And the song Fight or Flight, I think definitely has a standout part on this EP because it is, I think, the most angry of
Mhm.
them all. I think everything else kind of does have a um, more of a sad, more personal, emotional, like sorrowful feel to it.
Mhm.
And one night when we were recording, um, the we were in the kitchen talking to Adam just about just some stressful situations,
Mhm.
um, and it was kind of making me reflect on other stressful situations that I'd been in about uh, um, being recognized for work and being recognized for what you do.
Mhm.
And we were both like pretty fired up, and we were like, "Do you want to go write an angry song?" And we were like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And then that's how like Fight or Flight came to be because we were both just like in our heads and thinking about past situations and thinking about past work and
Mhm.
past employers, and just like it really like got like some raw like intense moments out of me specifically because we just wanted to write an angry song. and
Mhm.
uh and it still fits on the EP. And it may not be the most um, that may not be the most poetic of the songs, but it definitely has its place with how intense it is emotionally.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Fuck yeah.
So for the last couple questions, we're going to shift completely away from music. So if you could be one animal for the rest of your life,
Soup.
what animal would you be and why? What?
What did you say?
I thought you were going to ask about soup. I don't know. I
That's
think
a
the last.
crazy
No.
fucking guess, man.
This guy's going off the last interview. No food questions this time.
Nope.
um, Animal. I think I would be a great white shark.
Okay.
Um, because they are misunderstood
Mhm.
and feared, um, for the right reasons, but at the end of the day, probably just don't want anything to do with you and just want to exist in their nice little ocean. But also like could, could tear you apart, but also they're super, I understand that. Like,
Mhm.
don't fuck with them. And then they won't
Exactly.
do that to you most of the time, unless they're
Yeah.
just like bored and they want to fuck with you a little bit.
So why not, man?
Exactly.
Fuck yeah. We actually lied. We do have a food question. So if you could
You
have lunch with
fucking
any
piece of
celebrity or artist, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
You know, I think I would choose John Bernthal,
Mhm.
who plays Shane in The Walking Dead. He's the Punisher in the
Punisher.
Marvel
Yeah.
Punisher movies. He's been in a couple more notable things, like he's been in Fury, one of my favorite war movies. He was in Wolf of Wall Street. He's been in a bunch of cool things, and I've been listening to or seeing clips of his podcast, which is very just like a raw storytelling podcast. Like he doesn't bring on, like he brings on other celebrities and other actors and stuff, but he also brings on people that are just like war veterans, people doing work for their community, people who have been through traumatic experiences.
Mhm.
Um, and people who have a really raw and emotional story to tell.
Mhm.
And I think that he'd be just a cool guy to just sit down and have a couple beers with. And I think he's a real one. The podcast might be called Real Ones.
Now they think of it. Yeah,
And he really is a
it.
real one.
Wow.
He is, yeah.
Holy shit.
Dude, I just started The Walking Dead like a couple weeks ago, and Shane is like my second
first
favorite
time?
character. For the first, I mean, like I feel like I watched it all the way through when the pandemic first started, like early 2020, but I don't remember shit. So I'm just rewatching it for the
Really?
first time again. Yeah, it's awesome.
Man, well, I finished it. I finished the final season of the original Walking Dead series
Yeah.
earlier this year. And I think that that's a show a lot of people fell off on and thought that it got bad, and didn't hold up to the first few seasons. And I just disagree. I saw that show for what it was, and I enjoyed it for what it was, which was a story that moved away from zombie apocalypse and into humans being the most scary thing on the planet and not
Yeah.
zombies. And as much as zombies are my favorite type of horror, but
Mhm.
I think that when you get into mixing how people are so horrific with just a sprinkle of like, oh, and we got to fight these
There's a
zombies
zombie in the
too.
background. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved I loved that series, and they've come out with like 3 different spin-offs now that I have to check out, like
Yeah.
the Daryl Dixon standalone I haven't seen, or Dead City I haven't seen, but I definitely like to check that stuff out.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
Okay.
for this last question, boom, you're on a desert island. You can bring one movie, one album, and one person. Who and what are you bringing?
I'm bringing Groundhog Day,
Oh, good ass movie.
the movie with Bill
Mhm.
Murray.
Mhm.
I'm bringing uh man, what album am I bringing? That's tough. I'm trying to just think of genre first.
Damn.
Because there's like at least one album in like every genre that I listen to that I would want to bring. Um I think I would bring an album called Terraforming by an instrumental gent metal band called Wide Eyes. I think I would bring Terraforming by Wide Eyes with me. Um, Danny from Wide Eyes is the producer for Knight Rider, and for the last Defiance stuff, he was our producer for that. And Wide Eyes is a group of 3 guitarists from Ohio that just write some of the coolest stuff that I've ever heard, and are somehow able to do instrumental records with concepts, which is so hard to do because without lyrics, how do you present a concept to somebody?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they do it, and they've done it. The past like 3 records have all been concept records, and they're really, 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 really awesome. So I think Terraforming, which is my favorite of the records, would be the record. And the person that I would bring, I mean, like I know like my best friend would be mad if I didn't say him. I know my girlfriend would be mad if I didn't say her. I
Yeah.
know my sister would be mad if I didn't say her. But I think that I would bring my girlfriend, Sarah,
There you go.
Yes.
That's a good answer.
just
Safe
because
choice.
it's a fantastic answer. As much as my sister and my best friend Nick bring out the best in me, Sarah has been the one um, to really make me change who I am as a person in a positive way. That I'm actually, happy with the person that I am finally. So
Oh,
That's
yeah.
so fucking cute.
Yeah, I love that. So as I said, that's all the questions we have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
well, so Ricky and I do this project called Lowest.
No.
It's what we've been talking about. I believe that the Instagram for Lowest is Lowest Music. That's LOWIST, which is fun because the first track on the EP is called Lowest, Lowest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys put that together.
I did see it, and I was like,
But
oh,
Like he's cooking
yeah,
with that one.
it's kind of like how I wanted the first track on Knight Rider's self-titled record, Knight Rider, to be called Knight Rider. I really, really wanted it to be Knight Rider by Knight Rider from the album Knight Rider, but I got outvoted.
what the fuck? That's opportunity wasted, man.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Fucked up.
Because he says Knight Rider, he says the name of the band in the song. Like,
Come on, Dennis.
Come on, dude.
yeah, I know. So, yeah, so Lowest Music is the Instagram. And I mean, like I said, I mean, like I also play drums in a band called Knight Rider. Anthony Musier, who is on War Memorial, which is the last track on the EP, is the vocalist of a band that I also play drums in from Buffalo called American Nosebleed. You can find all this stuff on Spotify and Apple Music and anywhere that you do that stuff. And you know, I'm just thankful for people that support me in any way, whether it's just on Instagram lives or my funny cocktail videos or any of the music that I create. It's just really nice to have multiple outlets to do the things that I like to do and to have people give a fuck.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, thank you for sound. It's been Lowest, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.